Okay, guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. All right, guys, it is Sunday, November 10th, and it is 11:17 p.m., and I know I'm really late, and I know that some of you guys don't like chatting. I can appreciate that, but if you want to stick around till the end, because I know that you diehard listeners do, well, I might tell you a little staple gun story. Yeah. And I'm going to leave my thank yous to the end as well. So let's get into the news. No, really, let's. Okay. Now, we're going to start right here because it's going to be one of those things that you go, huh? Yeah, you will. All right, bombshell. Schiff's star witness admits his only source was the New York Times. What? His source was the New York Times? Let's read further, shall we? And there is Schiff. Oh, do. Star witness to far left Representative Adam Schiff's ongoing impeachment inquiry, U.S. diplomat William Taylor admitted behind a closed-door testimony that his only source for his claims that he made were from the New York Times. During the, that's kind of like saying, I know it's true. I read it on a bathroom wall. Bathroom wall, New York Times, about equal. During his testimony, Taylor identified Rudolph Giuliani, President Trump's personal lawyer, as the instigator behind the drive to get Ukraine's president to announce investigations into Mr. Trump's political rivals, telling impeachment investigators last month that Mr. Giuliani was acting on behalf of the president, according to the New York Times. The testimony portrayed a president determined to enlist Ukraine in publicly undermining his political rivals, including former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. According to Taylor himself, his idea that Giuliani wanted dirt from the Ukrainians came from the New York Times. The Western Journal reports that part, for reasons unbeknownst to me, didn't make it into the Times story. The revelation came during a line of questioning from the New York Republican, Representative Lee Zeldin, according to an expert of Taylor's testimony. Zeldin published in a Twitter post today. Zeldin focused on interest in Burisma Holding, the Ukraine energy company that paid Biden's son, Hunter, $50,000 a month to serve on its board. Would you tell us what your position is on it? Zeldin asked Taylor. What was the goal of requesting investigations into 2016 election and Burisma? As I understand it from one of the many articles in the New York Times about Mr. Giuliani's interest in Burisma. In that article, he describes, and I think he quotes Giuliani at some length. That article indicates that Giuliani was interested in getting some information on Vice President Biden that would be useful to Mr. Giuliani's client, Taylor replied. I think that's what he says. He says he's got one client and he's useful to that client. Would you like to tell us what your position is on it? Zeldin asked. What was the goal of requesting investigations into 2016 election and Burisma? As I understand from one of maybe the article. Okay, why is this actually printed twice? They print this exact same paragraph twice. Now, why? I don't know. Just to make me look like I'm an idiot. That's exactly why they did it. Absolutely. They don't know who I am. Lee Zeldin, star witness. Taylor said in a depo he believed reason POTUS wanted Ukraine to investigate Ukrainians' interference with the 2016 election and Burisma was just to get dirt on Biden. He later admitted to me his sole source of info was, wait for it, the New York Times. Mr. Zeldin, would you like to tell us what your position is on it? What was the goal? And we just read that, and then Ambassador Taylor admits that he got it from the New York Times, and then it's your inference that Mr. Giuliani's goal would be the president's goal. Yes. And your source is the New York Times? Yes. So do you have any other sources? What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. Well, I'll tell you what my thoughts are. I mean, this whole thing is absolutely asinine. I can't believe it's happening in the greatest country on earth, the United States of America. Really, really. I mean, 30 years ago, if you were alive, which probably you were because my audience tends to be a little bit older, 30 years ago, would you have possibly thought that something like this could happen in the United States? Impeaching a president over nothing? He hasn't done anything wrong. Nothing. And the people that are against him they're not even first-hand witnesses. There are no first-hand witnesses. We have the transcript. Hello, people. We have the transcript. I don't know why that's so difficult. Read the transcript. But you know, every single time I see a Republican quoting from that transcript, they misquote it. Or they'll take a piece up here, they'll leave out a paragraph, and then they'll paste it to something down here. Context isn't everything. It's everything. It's like you can make something say anything you want by creatively editing it. You only get the true meaning of something when you read it, top to bottom, in order, in context. And that is the game that the Democrats are playing, because they think that Americans are too stupid to read the transcript or too lazy, and some are. But that is the game that they're playing. Anyway, let's go back and get into the next thing. I'm going to skip on this. I'm going to hit on this. I can't get to everything that I have to bring you tonight, so I'm being a little bit choosy. But Adam Schiff sits on a throne of lies. Yes, he does. All the power that Democrats and the media have granted him are based on deceptions, parodies, and outright lies that Representative Schiff has been selling over the last 3 years. He's going to get his. He is. And I don't mean that as any sort of a threat to him. I'm just going to say that what goes around comes around, really. He cannot continue behavior like this. He's obviously guilty of some huge infractions, or else he wouldn't be doing this. Who would risk their career and their freedom on something like this if they didn't have something bigger that they were running from and wanting that president out, because that president might out his huge skeletons in his closet? There's a pile of them, a big pile of them. All right, the leader of the impeachment coup of President Trump, Representative Adam Schiff, sits on a throne of lies. All the power that Democrats and the media have granted him are based on deceptions, parodies, and outright lies that Representative Schiff has been selling over the last 3 years. Well, of course, he sits on a throne of lies because he takes after his father, the devil, who is the father of all lies. He's the father of lies, right? So, yes, just like Christians want to be like their father, and we should attain to that. We should want to be more Christ-like. We should want to be follow in his footsteps. Well, it's the same with these guys. They want to follow in their father's footstep, who is the father of lies and deception. Makes sense, doesn't it? Representative Schiff refuses to accept the reality that the American people elected Donald Trump as their 45th president. Living in his cocoon in Washington, D.C. and California has allowed Representative Schiff to dismiss facts and live in a world where opinions and hearsay are repeated in a media echo chamber until they are reported as reality. When the Pfizer report is released and the president's lawyers and Republican lawmakers can cross-examine Schiff's witnesses, his throne of lies will disintegrate, leaving him powerless and humiliated. Well, one only hopes. Just some of the lies that Schiff has built his throne of power on include 3 years of telling the American people that he had evidence to prove that President Trump and his campaign colluded with Russia. This was a lie. During a March 2017 hearing with disgraced former FBI Director James Comey, Representative Schiff read discredited facts from the anti-Trump Russian dossier. The facts he cited were lies. In 2018, Representative Schiff attempted to discredit Representative Nunes' memo. Representative Schiff repeatedly tried to protect DOJ official Bruce Orr. Representative Schiff falsely claimed that the courts were aware that the dossier was created by a highly partisan individual, Christopher Steele, and that the information used from the dossier was corroborated by the FBI. All of that was a lie. Schiff's committee repeatedly leaked misinformation or false information to the media outlets during the Russia probe. Some of these leaks caused media outlets to call for the arrest of Donald Trump Jr., and the media outlets had to apologize for repeating lies after the truth came out. Representative Schiff read the American people a fake transcript of President Trump's call with the president of Ukraine, which he later excused as a parody and not a lie. Really? You're going to stand up in Congress and give them a parody? All the while claiming this is the transcript? Right, Schiff. You're not a good liar. Really, you're not a good liar. Then finally, he repeatedly lied to the American people about his or his staff's connection and possible conversations with the, I'm going to call this WB, this word right here, because people are getting their videos taken down left, right, and center who talks about this subject. So from now on, that word will be WB. Before the WB's report was filed, Schiff should step aside from its position due to his inability to tell the truth. And I do believe that. I don't think that it's just that. I do think he's incapable of telling the truth. I think he is so steeped in the swamp that it exudes from his very pores. Whatever's in your heart comes out of your heart, right? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. If all you put in there, if all you are around and surrounded by and consume are lies, that's what's going to come out. He is unable to tell the truth. And because he could now be called as a witness by the Republicans or the president's lawyers, he should also probably seek a counselor's help to see if he can cure his pathological lying that most definitely has roots in his addiction for hating President Trump. And you know what makes some pathological liars so dangerous? Is that they believe their own lies, and therefore they lie so convincingly. They're so convincingly, most people who are lying and they know they're lying, like they give little telltale signs, but if you actually believe that what you're telling is the truth, you're not sending any of those cues. And I think that applies to Schiff. Now I'm an armchair psychiatrist, I guess. I don't know, but that's what I believe anyway. All right, and let's go back now because we want to keep moving on. And yes, look at this. No, really, look at this. Now, this is old news. I'm just going to tell you right now, this is from July. But it's interesting because I haven't seen this before. And maybe you have, but breaking news, Trump removes Muslim federal judge for trying to implement Sharia law in America. Now, I didn't know that, and I don't know why this wasn't in the news. Well, actually, yes, of course I do. Oh, just kidding. But I'm not going to read all of this, but it's interesting. It's interesting because it said President Trump utilized an old point of reference and an official request to expel, I'm just going to call his last name Smith because, well, I can't pronounce that. Smith from his seat, referring to net carelessness of his obligations and wanton negligence of the United States Constitution, reports as American as apple pie. Democrats can't quit whining over this, guaranteeing since the arrangement wasn't Trump's, he can't utilize the point of reference to flame him. Trump reacted that individuals dependably need him to consider the office in these circumstances. His solitary explanation was the office had no choice but to let him go for the good of the country. Now, it's interesting. He was trying to implement Sharia law. Trump, get out. I'm okay with that. Now, let's go back. And this from Lisa Mae Crowley. Lindsey Graham just told Maria Bartiromo the WB may be connected with the illegally obtained FISA warrants, which may be revealed in Horowitz's investigation, and could be why Adam Schiff doesn't want the WB to testify. Wow. Think about that. Now, I don't think Lindsey Graham would put his neck on the line like that and say that to Maria Bartiromo if there wasn't truth to that. So he said the WB may be connected with the illegally obtained FISA warrants. Oh, this isn't going to end well for the Democrats. Really. If that's true, they should have known better. Now, I don't know if you've seen this picture before or not, but let's take a look at it. They tried to bury this one of CIA agent Ilhan Omar at a terrorist training camp in Somalia. And there she is. Well, well, well. Is she one of the alphabet agencies that starts with C? Wouldn't surprise me in the least. Obviously, not a white hat. Now, here's something else that I wanted to bring to your attention, and I found it absolutely fascinating and some confirmation of a few things. I don't know if you will, but I'm going to bring it to you for you to consider. Why are they not buried at Arlington National Cemetery? Now, let's look over here on the left. And this is from PLAW 115, Publication 1232, National Defense Act, U.S. Code 2411, Prohibition against internment or memorialization in the National Cemetery Administration or Arlington National Cemetery of persons committing federal or state capital crimes. A person referred to in subsection A is any of the following. 1. A person who has been convicted of a federal capital crime and whose conviction is final. 2. A person who has been convicted of a state capital crime and whose conviction is final, other than a person whose sentence was commuted by the governor of a state. A person who A is found, as provided in subsection C, to have committed a federal capital crime or a state capital crime, but has not been convicted of such a crime by reason of such person not being available for trial due to the death or flight to avoid prosecution. 4. A person who has been convicted of a federal or state crime causing the person to be a Tier 3 sex offender for purposes of the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act. Let me go down here. So, and it says, so these are the people that cannot be buried in Arlington National Cemetery, okay? So if you've been convicted So maybe you are eligible to be buried there, but you have been convicted of a federal capital crime or a state capital crime. You cannot be buried there. Interesting, but I know you're saying, so what? I don't want to be buried there. No, but there's a few people that have recently died that do. President Bush to be buried Thursday at George H.W. Bush Presidential Library. Bush's casket will arrive in Texas by train on Thursday after the former president lies in state at the U.S. Capitol. Why wasn't he buried at Arlington National Cemetery like the presidents before him? Why John McCain is buried in Annapolis instead of Arlington National Cemetery. The ceremony took place miles from Arlington National Cemetery, where his father and grandfather, both admirals, are buried. Why wouldn't he be buried there? To me, that's as good as proof right there. That is proof. I mean, it's not absolutely conclusively proof, but think about it. He's in a line, his grandfather, his father. Wouldn't you think that that would be a great honor to be buried with them in Arlington National Cemetery? I would think so. I mean, if my father and grandfather and I was their son, and, I'd want to be buried with them. Of course. But he's not. He's buried in Annapolis. Interesting. Now, Elijah Cummings' funeral, Democrat, will lie in state at U.S. U.S. Capitol on Thursday before a funeral at his home church in Baltimore. So he's not buried in Arlington Cemetery either. I don't know who is eligible, so I don't know if he would have been eligible or not. I am assuming, since they put it into this graphic, that he would have been, but I don't know that for a fact. Now, if any of you guys, I know some of you people that listen are military or former military, and if you are, if you know what the criteria is for being buried in Arlington National Cemetery, I've been there, but not for a very long time. I would like to know. I probably did know at one time because I've visited there. I've seen, JFK's grave and so forth. All right. All right, let's go on now. But you got to admit that's interesting. Okay, now, this is from 3 days ago actually. And I'm not sure if we have read this, but I don't think we have. I think it's one that I looked over because of lack of time. The spy who spied. That's what spies do. They spy. I'm just saying. That's what they do. All right. Now, let me see. Okay. In an article published by Paul Sperry, they gave the name, and I can't say that name anymore on air because they are removing all videos that have that name in it. They have from YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So we will just call him WB. So, whom I refer to as the spy. What you need to know about the spy: the entire media establishment knows his identity as the WB and have known for some time. In addition, he studied at Harvard and Yale, is a registered Democrat, worked in the Obama White House, we already know all this stuff about, was part of the Russian collusion narrative, remained at the NSC during the earlier months of the Trump administration, and an email he sent while he was still assigned to the NSC was cited in the Mueller report. What stands out about the spy is he is a staunch critic of Trump, so why the heck would he choose to continue working under him? That's a good question, isn't it? I would not work for somebody that I don't like and don't respect, and I don't agree with their politics. I mean, if I was in politics now, obviously, I've certainly worked for people that I don't agree with their politics at all. All right. Now, it says, so why did he continue working under him? There are times when individuals have a boss they don't like but stay on the job because of the money. But with the spy's connection, I'm sure he could have gotten another job outside the administration. Either Biden, Brennan, or Susan Rice could have gotten him a hookup for another job. Even Obama could have hooked him up. Yet the spy chose to stay and be a spy. This holds true for all the never-Trumpers currently on the Hill. If they are so adamantly against what this president stands for, all of his accomplishments in making the country great, why remain? Get another job. Why create chaos and confusion and seek to overthrow the government? In essence, they are working against the people who elected the president and his government. Why? That has to be the million-dollar question. Why do and did they stay? Attorney General Barr, John Durham, and Michael Horowitz will soon be able to get the answers to those questions. Until such time, all we have now is the name of the spy and the evil he and others are doing to destroy our great country, America. Yes, indeed. And we have more. Yes, we do. Let's look at this now. This is interesting as well. No, it is, really. Alrighty. Emails reveal potential widespread pay-to-play corruption within Obama State Department. Well, we're shocked, aren't we? What if the entirety of the Trump-Ukraine hoax was little more than a deep state orchestrated distraction meant to keep eyes away from what was widespread pay-to-play corruption of the Obama State Department, where taxpayer-funded foreign aid was in fact a vast money grab scheme that repeatedly sold American interests away to the highest bidder? What if, indeed? Finally, U.S. senators are waking up to the possibility that 2020 Democratic contender Joe Biden may have knowingly permitted his son Hunter to sell access to the U.S. State Department while Joe was serving as a vice president. The line between crony capitalism and outright corruption is a thin one, but when it comes to assessing the legitimacy of Trump's interest in ending Ukrainian corruption, it's worth determining the veracity of corruption allegations, of which Hunter Biden represents a not insignificant part. On Wednesday, U.S. Senators Ron Johnson, Wisconsin, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, and Chuck Grassley, Iowa, chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, sent a letter to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo Wednesday inquiring about the matter in which the consulting firm Blue Star Strategies, hired by the infamous Ukrainian national gas company Burisma, might have utilized Hunter Biden's role on the Burisma board to possibly influence State Department matters, according to a press release from the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. Emails also indicate that Hunter Biden and his fellow Burisma board member Devin Archer scheduled meetings with high-ranking members of the U.S. State Department at the time that Burisma was under investigation for corruption by the Ukrainian government. According to Johnson and Grassley's letter, in May 2015, Hunter Biden asked to meet then Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to get his advice on a couple things, and again for lunch on July 22nd, 2015. On March 2nd, 2016, just one day after Tramontano was scheduled to meet with Undersecretary Novelli about Burisma, Devin Archer was scheduled to meet with Secretary of State John Kerry. We're going to find out John Kerry's connected to a whole lot more than we ever thought he was. We will. So I'm not going to read that. But Johnson and Grassley's letter reveals how the State Department was well aware of Hunter's board position at Burisma, as were others on the periphery, suggesting that any theory that Joe did not know of his son's role is likely false. Additionally, we now know the consulting firm hired by Burisma attempted to leverage Hunter's role with Burisma in order to land a coveted meeting with the U.S. State Department. The latest emails also demonstrate that Hunter and Archer were both scheduling meetings with high-ranking officials in the State Department. If they discussed Burisma during those potential meetings, it would be a heavy indication that Burisma had hired Hunter to gain access to the nucleus of U.S. foreign policy and to exert their influence on it. Bingo. Despite the obvious leveraging, it is unclear how greatly Hunter's involvement with the company ultimately influenced the State Department's willingness to meet with Blue Star, and whether the meeting between Taramonto and Blue Star and Undersecretary Novelli ever took place. However, answering such questions is critical for determining the extent which, if at all, Hunter Biden may have sold access to the U.S. State Department. In light of these revelations, Hunter Biden's salary of $50,000 per month at Burisma suddenly seems to make much more sense, and it's a lot more than $50,000 now that we are aware of that. Given the tenor of the final question posed by Grassley and Johnson, it is entirely possible that the State Department turned a blind eye to the conflict of interest that erupted between Hunter and Joe. The American people deserve to know if Joe Biden put the State Department up for sale while serving as vice president from 2008 to 2016, and Grassley and Johnson's letter is the first step in making such a determination. The possibility that Joe Biden was putting State Department up for sale is a legitimate one, but it must also be noted that this action was not a contradiction of the Obama-era tone during that time, but rather an extension of it. Hillary Clinton did much the same. Mr. Obama's Secretary of State, where the mingling of State Department policy and the Clinton Foundation coffers were seemingly intertwined, and that environment was itself initiated from the very top via Barack Obama himself. Pallets of cash to Iran, weaponry to extremists in Libya, Syria, literally bowing to China's demands, etc. The above is likely why the far-left media is so aggressively pushing the Trump-Ukraine hoax. They know Ukraine was in many ways the epicenter of Obama-era pay-to-play corruption that represents billions in shady deals and lost U.S. taxpayer dollars. And don't think for a second this could not have taken place without real accountability if some high-ranking Republicans didn't have their own hands in some of that corruption as well. John McCain. If President Trump is able to expose even a tenth of the corruption that appears to have been running rampant during the Obama years, he will have done a remarkable service to the American people, who have every right to know how much of their money is ending up in the hands of people who have long pretended to represent their interests while ultimately doing more than lining their own pockets. Doing little more than lining their own pockets. And of course, we know that's why they're in politics, right? You know, I just realized right now, all of a sudden I thought, I forgot to turn off my air purifier. So you're probably getting like a little droning in the background. And if you are, that's what it is. And I apologize. My next video, it'll be off, I promise. It just slipped my mind tonight. So let's go back now. Hopefully it's not too loud and you're still able to hear me. Now, okay, let's go back here and let's look at this. I'm just wondering if I can turn it off from here. I don't think I can without turning around and sticking my bum in the camera, and that would just be embarrassing. All right, so of course I could do this. Actually, I think I can. Oh, no thanks. Says video shows 16 U.S. Marines being arrested during formation in connection. Can't even read this now. Oh man. Hang on. Let me turn my ad blocker off and maybe it'll let me. Yes. Video shows 16 U.S. Marines being arrested during formation in connection with a human smuggling ring. Yeah. Don't ever say that nothing's being done. They were arrested right in front of their comrades there. So yeah, it says this video obtained by the San Diego Union Tribune showed the Marines being handcuffed by Naval Criminal Investigative Service agents in front of their peers at parade rest. The newspaper reported that the Marines' arrests were a result of an investigation into a human smuggling ring. Roughly 40 investigators detained the Marines, who were called in front of the formation to be recognized, the Union Tribune reports, citing court filings. NCIS arrest these Marines, Sergeant Major Matthew Dorsey said. Attorneys representing two of the Marines told the Union Tribune that their clients' arrest violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They described the arrests as pretrial punishment and unlawful command influence, a term that refers to military leaders abusing their position to influence the outcome of legal proceedings. Well, I don't believe that. Of course, the lawyer would say that. 13 Lance Corporals from the 1st Marine Division were charged with offenses including human smuggling, larceny, drunkenness, and perjury, Stars and Stripes reported in September. 2 Lance Corporals were arrested earlier in July after Customs and Border Protection agents saw them pick up people thought to be undocumented immigrants at the nearby resort community of MCCUMBER Hot Springs, the Union Tribune reported. The two were charged with trying to smuggle 3 people across the U.S.-Mexico border, which is considered a federal crime. The Marines said it was during the investigation into the 2 Lance Corporals that investigators found other Marines who were also implicated. A study of the U.S. Sentencing Commission found that in 2018, the average age of a human smuggler in the U.S. was 33, and that over 75% of the smugglers were men. Roughly 58% had little or no prior criminal history, the commission said, adding that the average sentence for all smugglers was 16 months. So, there you go. A lot of corruption being cleaned up, a lot, and that is why I read that. Now, all right, let's look at this. You know what? I'm going to pause this because I can, and I'm going to shut off. Is it paused? I don't know if it's paused or not. All right, so we're back without the drone. I was sitting here going, I don't know if it's paused or not, so that's, you probably got some weird craziness in there, but you know, it wouldn't be my channel if there wasn't a little bit of craziness going on. Let's go back now without all that droning in the background, and let's look at this. No, let's look. Bombshell. Schiff star witness admits his own, oh no, that's not it. My gosh, there's more craziness happening. I don't know. Here we go. Here's what I want to get to. True pundit. WikiLeaks bombshell. Whistleblower's attorney, Zaid, worked with CIA to imprison client. This is getting very, very interesting. Now surfaces an intel gem from Julian Assange's WikiLeaks alleging that the lawyer for Adam Schiff's anti-Trump and Ukraine WB was called out by WikiLeaks and Assange for selling out a legal client to the CIA. And the client ended up in prison, according to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks previously hurled a brutal and damning tweet to attorney Mark Zaid, accusing him of selling out a client and working with the CIA to get that client locked up. Sounds familiar. And this is WikiLeaks said here, WikiLeaks is aware from those directly involved of serious allegations that Mark S. Zaid revealed one of his clients to the CIA. The client was later imprisoned. Mark S. Zaid said in reply, LOL, that's your argument? I get new WBers clients every week. In fact, it's overwhelming how many, but thank you for your concern. WikiLeaks and Assange slammed Zaid after he was pontificating about representing WBs in court. About a week later, Zaid responded to the damning WikiLeaks accusation. And WikiLeaks is aware from those directly involved of serious allegations that Mark Zaid revealed one of his clients to the... Okay. And then Mark Zaid said here, you do not. Is everyone associated with WikiLeaks nothing other than fabricators or criminals? And that client still talks with me. His criminal defense lawyers talk and work with me regularly. That they all do specifically points to you as nothing but a single-celled, unthinkable amoeba. Okay. And he says, and then underneath here, it says, by the way, Julian, I trust you are now feeding your cat. You don't want to be on the other side of the door. And it shows a lady with a zillion cats. Zaid's response solicited more criticism, including a Twitter smackdown from former CIA operative John Kiriakou, who was also imprisoned. And Lisa Ling said, well, okay, down here, John Kiriakou, you are 100% correct. Mark Zaid is not a WB attorney. His protestations notwithstanding, any friend or advocate of rats and snitches is no friend of WB's. Just ask Jeffrey Sterling. And Lisa Ling responds to that and says, wrong again. We know who you are, whether we agree or disagree, went to court or did not, whether we support Assange or do not. The WB community knows you and your low bar. Keep telling us folks still talk to you, but remember, some just like to keep their enemies close. And here from Mike Thomas Payne Moore, wow, Assange called WB attorney a CIA rat. And Mike Thomas Moore, yeah, then that's just a link to the... So it says, this story is developing. Yes, it is. You put something in the dark and something develops. Alrighty. I don't know where that came from. Okay. Now, let's look at this. No, let's. Ryan Fournier, isn't it odd that Adam Schiff gave thousands of dollars to congressional representatives in Trump-won districts right before they changed their vote on impeachment from no to yes? I didn't know that. Did you know that? Yeah. Schiffy gave thousands of dollars to these congressional reps in Trump-won districts. Yeah, and then they changed their vote from their impeachment vote from no to yes. Where did he get that money? Taxpayers. Where else did he get it? You think he took it from his own bank account? And Tom Fitton, YouTube censored Judicial Watch video on Obama White House visitor logs, government documents that show meetings of alleged WB, who is also a CIA employee, who held key job at White House in 2 administrations. Coup against Donald Trump is destroying our freedom. Yes, it is. It is. And the censorship is now worse than it's ever been, really. So be careful what you say. If you are out there and trying to get the truth across to people, just be careful. Because the way I look at it, and I hate it when people say, well, just speak the truth and don't worry about it. Well, the problem is that if you're not careful, then they shut you down and you're not able to speak anything to anyone anymore, you know, except maybe a few people. Well, no, because they shut your YouTube down. They shut everything down. So, yeah. I'd rather be able to get some truth out than no truth out. That's the way I look at it right now. So yes, I would love to be able to be as candid as possible and talk about everything that I know and that I've researched. But unfortunately, we are living in a society that is heavily, heavily censored. Yeah, and I think it's going to get worse before it ever gets better. All right, now that is it. So I'm going to go ahead and thank these people. And then if you'd like to stay while I tell you my story about a nail gun Well, actually a staple gun. I will. All right. So thank you, coffee donors. Boomer66, Sherry Wilson, Chrissa M, Mams717, and Robin P from the Niagara region in Ontario. And you're right, Robin, it's cold. So anyway, there was no new Patreon and no snail mail, of course, because today's Sunday. That would really be something if I got mail today. So anyway, that is it for the show. But, well, do you want me to tell you about my nail gun? Oh, it's not a nail gun. It's a staple gun. So you people that hate chatting, you can stop the video now because it's just chatting from here on out. All right. So my cats shredded my two chairs, my two dining room chairs. They shredded. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what's the cheapest way to remedy this? Aside from giving the cats away, which I don't think cats are disposable. I think that once you make the commitment, to give them a home, you give them a home and you work with them to train them. So that's what I'm doing. But in the meantime, I don't want to I'm very, very impeccably clean, like seriously. And the fact that you come into my place, like a lot of my stuff is stuff that I've gotten and refinished and stuff, gotten very, very cheaply and refinished myself. And it looks great. It does. And I get lots of compliments, but I didn't want people coming into my house and seeing these two shredded chairs. My dining room table actually is an antique from around the turn of the century, and it came from my grandparents' farm. So I had these two chairs that they were upholstered chairs that didn't really go with it, but they kind of went with it. They kind of made it a little bit more modern. So I'm thinking, well, what do I do now? Because I can't afford to go out and buy two new chairs. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess I can buy one of those Parson chair covers and just kind of put the cover over it. But in the meantime, I have a friend that doesn't drive. So I thought, well, I am going to, let me hang on here just one second. I want to make sure that this is recording. It is still recording. Okay, let's go over here. It beats looking at an infinity screen anyway. So my friend doesn't drive, so she needed me to take her to get a few things. And so I was doing that, and we passed by this dumpster, and there were chairs sitting out beside it because the dumpster was full. And she goes, look at those chairs, look. And I'm going, I'm looking. And she said, well, you could take they were nice, beautiful wood chairs that were old, and, they're solidly made, like really, really heavy chairs. And she said, look, you could reupholster the chair pads like very easily. Just take that off and, discard the foam and whatever and the fabric and put your own fabric on. And I said, that's not such a bad idea. They're really dirty. She goes, I know, but look at the stuff you've, take it home and, work your magic on it. So I was like, okay, all right. But first I'm going to ask whoever owns this dumpster if they're really, garbage, because the last thing I wanted to be accused of is stealing. So I asked, and they said, oh no, help yourself. There's like 6 of them. Some of them are in the dumpster, but I said, no, I don't need 6, which now that I see them, I wish I had taken more. But anyway, so she put them in my car, and I've got a really tiny car. She's fitting them in my car because with my back, I just can't lift anything much at all. And these chairs are very heavy. So anyway, she put them in my car, and then I said, well, you'll have to come, I can't just drop you off at your place. You're going to have to come and help me get these in she says, well, I'll take them in. And she did. So they're there. And so they were in my living room, and they were absolutely filthy dirty, filthy. And I'm thinking, so then, like this was a couple days ago. So then my landlord calls and see where I'm living. Of course, when I came to Canada, I couldn't buy anything because I didn't have a credit rating here because I'd lived most of my life in the States, or most of my adult life in the States. So it was like I didn't exist in Canada anymore, and I had to start from scratch. So I rented. But the problem is rents in these areas are rising exponentially. So these apartments are worth, well, not quite double, but they're worth a lot more than I'm paying right now. So what they're doing is they're trying to find a reason, because they can't just kick you out unless they find a reason. They try to find a reason to get you out so that they can get somebody else in who will pay way more rent. But they can't kick me out because I'm a really, really good tenant and I'm impeccably clean and whatever. But they were trying to find excuses. There was a lady, they said she was parking too close to the curb. She got an eviction notice. Yeah, too close to the curb. So you'll know what I'm talking about. So here I have these two chairs in the living room, and they're filthy dirty, and they've got fabric on them that's moldy. And I mean, so I'm thinking, oh, I'm so glad that nobody's visiting or whatever. Then I get this little thing under my door saying, oh, you have an inspection tomorrow. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I have to clean. I mean, this place is impeccable, but I have to clean because I can't let them find any reason. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to redo those chairs. So I did. I took a whole night and I redid my chairs. I already had the paint, because I had the paint when I redid the china cabinet from my grandparents' farm, and refinished it and whatever. So I repainted these chairs, I cleaned them up, repainted them, and I thought, okay, now I just have to do the chair bottoms. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need like an upholstery staple gun, and I got a piece of fabric from that was left over, a remnant that was absolutely beautiful upholstery, so for next to nothing. So I'm like, geez, I'm the chairs were free, the fabric was cheap. I'm not into this for much at all. And they look fantastic. I mean, way better than I ever thought they would. So I'm like, okay, now I got to phone around to see if I can find somebody that has a staple gun. So my stepdad actually did, and he says, oh yeah, just stop by. I've got a staple gun for you here. So I'm thinking, yeah, now I'm already, like, my back is absolutely in pain, like unbelievable pain. I had to go to the chiropractor, just to recover my back from doing the chairs because I was in so much pain. So I just have this little bit to finish, and I'm thinking, you know what? Today's a good day. I'm going to finish that little bit and get those upholstered. I had new foam for the chairs and I cut that all out, and then I upholstered, and I just had to staple it. So I had borrowed the staple gun. So I thought, this is just going to go really quick and then I can do my show. So I got the staple gun out, and sure, it worked like a charm. I mean, absolutely. I thought, oh, this is so easy. It's going so well. And I'm stapling away. I finished the first chair, and I stand back and I say, that is absolutely gorgeous. I love it. And so I'm thinking, okay, it just take me a couple more minutes to finish the other one because I had it all in place. I just had to staple it. And so I'm stapling away. I staple 3 sides, and on the 4th side, the gun runs out of staples. So I'm thinking, oh, that's no problem. Because my stepfather gave me about this many staples. He says, I don't think you'll need these, but just in case, I'll put them in there in case you run out. So I'm thinking, oh, great. I'll just pop these in there and off I'll go and finish that and then do my show early. And then I'll be able to upload it early and people will be so happy. I'll be so happy. So anyway, he showed me how to open the little thing where the staples go, but he did not show me how to put them in. So I assume they go in like every other stapler, right? That's what I would assume, but I would have assumed wrong, and I did. So I put them in the top, and that's not where they went. So it became jammed, and it became jammed to the point where there was no remedy. So we have a store here called Canadian Tire. They sell automotive stuff, all sorts of hardware, and some home goods stuff. But anyway, it's like a man's store. Like, they go in there and they salivate. So I thought, okay, well, this is their brand, so I'm gonna, it's not that far. I'm gonna go in there. They were closing, so I was like, I need more staples for this, number one, and number two, I don't know what I did wrong, but I can't get these staples out. So they're looking at it and they're going, oh, everybody's standing around. They call people, then we all stand around. They're looking at me like, and then the one guy, they finally call one guy who knows, and he goes, well, you put the staples in wrong. And I said, what? He goes, well, they go in the bottom. And I said, oh. So he goes, all you have to do is get those staples out of there, and then you can put them in the right way. And so I thought, well, that sounds easy. So he's like, well, actually, they're really jammed in there, so you might have to take it apart to, so that you can get them out. So there was like screws that hold, like there was two pieces like that fit together, and then they're screwed together. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just, find the screwdriver that fits and undo those, and then I'll take those staples out, put the new staples in, and we're all set to go. And I mean, I'm at Canadian Tire, and I'm like, running because the cache is closing, and these people, I mean, it was just chaotic. Anyway, so I get home and I'm thinking, okay, now I got to hurry up because I'm losing time and I still have my show to do. So I unscrew all the little screws and I take it off very, very gently. I thought all the parts just fell out onto my lap. And I'm like, uh-oh, I don't think this looks good. And I'm thinking, well, how hard could it be? I'll just put it back together again, right? No, it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle in there. And I don't know how to put it back together. So now my cheap chairs that were free, and the only thing I had to pay for, I already had the paint. The only thing I had to pay for was the little bit of material. And now I have to buy my stepfather a new staple gun. So then I'm like online looking for like, okay, I've got to find another one. They don't make them anymore. Not that kind. So now I got to buy a new staple gun, and he's going to know what I did, because it'll be a new staple gun, and I'll have to say, well, I took the other one apart and all the parts just fell out, and he's not good with putting stuff together like that either. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell him, because you know what? It's like, I know what you're saying. Well, just tell him. He'll understand. Of course he'll understand. He is a very, very kind man. But I have a history of doing this, taking things apart. I've got a very long history of it. My very first computer that I owned was bought for me by my boyfriend at the time, and I took the entire thing apart. And I know you think that didn't turn out well. Well, it did, because I put it right back together again perfectly, and it worked. But, and I learned a lot. But see, I do this a lot. I take things apart. So, yeah, I'm like really embarrassed now to tell my stepfather, who keeps things forever. Like, he treats everything so well, and it's like he's got tools that, I mean, they probably came over on the ark. But, well, goodbye to his staple gun, because I don't think, like Humpty Dumpty, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put the staple gun together again. Yeah, that's probably why I'm not married. Well, maybe one of the reasons anyway. So I just had to tell you that. That's why I was late tonight. Staple gun. Yeah. So that's my chatting for tonight, and I'm going to leave that so that I can get this uploaded, because I know what you guys are thinking right now, right at this very minute. You're thinking, she's not going to post tonight. But you'd be wrong. All right, guys. That's it. I appreciate all of you. I really do. I love your comments. I thank you for your contributions to keeping this channel going. And you guys stay safe, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth, because Epstein didn't kill himself.